Welcome back to Nightcap Chat, the pop culture, comics, and gaming podcast. Today we are talking the new Joker movie, how Joaquin Phoenix did, and all of our initial thoughts. I'm Blade O'Neill, and today I have a special guest joining me today. Back for those of you who watched us when we were a Twitch talk show. Originally, we were calling him Professor IDK, but you will now know him as Joseph Benton. Joe, thanks for joining me today.
Well, no problem. I finally figured out who I was.
Identity crisis, kind of like
the Joker.
Yes, that's our big lead in there. So, Joe, you were actually the one who roped me into seeing this last night, and I was actually going to skip.
Like literally last minute. Like I asked him to go, and it started in 10 minutes, and he said yes to my surprise. So we jumped in the car and ran right over real quick.
You did seem quite surprised. I was playing WoW with my wife, and you pulled us out of that. So I mean, that's pretty good.
Well, anything for the Nightcap Chat.
So what did you think? We didn't really have a chance to talk about the movie after we got out. We kind of all just went our separate ways and went to bed. But man, Joaquin Phoenix did a good job, and that's no surprise at all.
Joaquin Phoenix is the man.
Absolutely.
Everything that he's in, almost everything. I can't think of one bad character he's ever played. I mean, I don't know. It's Walk the Line was awesome.
He was a fantastic Johnny Cash.
He just got right into that role as Johnny Cash.
I would say Signs there was nothing really to showcase there.
I don't think that was his fault.
No, I'm not saying it's his fault, but I'm just saying it wasn't like some Oscar piece.
Yeah.
You
know? But Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker, or somebody who is just so mentally deranged, really worked. I mean, there's few actors I can see being able to pull off what he was able to pull off in this film.
And it was a unique take, and like one of the only, I wouldn't even call it a spoiler per se. And by the way, if you haven't realized already, spoiler alert, if you have not seen the Joker, because we are going to get into all of the spoilers, so you have like 3 more seconds to stop this podcast. Spoils. If you haven't figured that out yet already. But one of the things I read before is how what the inspiration was for his laugh. And it's actually a real medical condition where people who have a hard time, they did it in the movie, and where they laugh even though it's not an appropriate response. They literally can't help themselves, and if they try to stop, it is physically painful. And he portrayed that, and that's when I read that spoiler, I knew it was the inspiration for his laugh, but I did not realize he was actually going to have that condition. And I thought that was a very interesting take on the constant Joker, for lack of a better term, maniacal laugh.
I thought that was really good too. Because whenever he tried to like literally choke down the laughs, it looked like it physically hurt him.
And it's supposed to.
Yeah. And I think that helped his character building when he was probably rehearsing and practicing for this role. To get into this mindset of somebody who is literally slowly losing his screws. Mm-hmm. Is that it becomes, throughout the film, you see it become more and more painful for him, not just physically, but emotionally, because a lot of what happens to this character gets tied into his condition. And mm-hmm. One of my favorite lines from the movie, which, by the way, actually didn't have that much dialogue, if you think about it.
I was sitting there realizing that nobody was speaking, and we were dealing with this this violin, but it was so well shot and acted that you didn't get bored.
It wasn't just what he was saying and how he was moving, but I think if the camera mainly did this anyway. I think the camera just focused on his eyes. You could see the whole film just looking at Joaquin Phoenix's eyes. It was insane. You could tell by the kind of eyes that he's using exactly where his mental state was during the entire film. You can see the sad puppy dog eyes. Then you can start to see the curious, deranged, starting to figure out how some of these situations make him feel. And then you could see the crazy eyes, mm-hmm. Especially right at the end of the film. And the ending, I mean, we're kind of jumping ahead here, but the ending of the film was really cool too for me, because I felt it was like almost like a Fight Club kind of a thing, where you're not sure if everything in the film actually happened or not.
Yeah, and that kind of started with his love interest, if you will. And to be honest, it was bothering me that this girl was like just totally okay with him. Like there's clearly something wrong with him, and you're just acting like everything's fine. I mean, like I was buying it when he first made the joke, like, oh, you know, I have a gun, like I'm going to go rob the bank. And then she laughed because she thought he was kidding. But once like it kept going, and then they went on the date, and he failed at the nightclub, and like he went to the hospital, and she like kissed him on the forehead. I was like, doesn't she realize this dude, like there's something wrong? And then once it was revealed that he was imagining, I was like, okay, like I'm okay with this now.
Day.
Like, yeah, like this, like I was starting to wonder that, but you know.
Here's something that you probably didn't think about.
What's that?
Is she alive at the end of the movie?
I guess they didn't show it, but I would argue yes, because even though they didn't show anything, he didn't technically have a reason to kill her, even if she didn't share his affections. I would look at the small person as the example. Like after he killed his clown buddy, he just let the other guy go. Like, you were nice to me. Like, even though he was, you know, bricks.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I just remember seeing the right after that scene where we find out that was all in his head, his whole relationship. Mm-hmm. That out his windows, there's a ton of police car sirens, and I think they left that ambiguous as well. Again, kind of jumping towards getting ahead of ourselves here with the ending a little bit, but the way that it ends, I actually feel like it did some tribute to the character, just because of Joker's not supposed to have a backstory, but you kind of have to take everything with a grain of salt at the end of the film of kind of what happened. And
that helped make it okay.
I think that
for sure. I still, before we jump into whether we need this or not.
Yeah.
I wanted to address his weight loss, because in a recent interview, I think it was on Jimmy Fallon, he said he only lost 15 pounds and they don't pay me enough to lose more than that. And not a chance. That was 15 pounds, because every time he was on his shirt and leaning back, he was so emaciated, like rib cage, like sticking out.
It reminded me a lot of Batman. What's his name?
Christian Bale.
Bale.
He did the same thing.
Yeah. And I there's no way the dude only lost 15 pounds.
Yeah. I think he's trying to protect, more impressionable minds or something.
They already knew that they were making a film that Access Media was going to kind of jump on top of. Mm-hmm. So I think what they were trying to do is exactly what you're saying, is they're trying to, I only lost 15 pounds, but they didn't want people to look at that and point towards, look, he's making anorexia okay, right? It's for his job, right?
He lost like 50 pounds. I mean, he had to, like, Joaquin Phoenix. I'm not saying Joaquin Phoenix was fat, but he wasn't skinny before the Joker, Like, if I lost 15 pounds, like I still have a little bit of a beer gut,
But definitely, I hope the dude gets a cheeseburger after all this is said and done.
Right. I think he's already gained, a fair amount of the weight back, because I call it nonsense. So before we started recording, you mentioned that you thought you would kind of compare this to a Greek tragedy.
Yeah. I mean, yes and no. When you're looking at Greek tragedy, you're supposed to have a protagonist that suffers, and you're supposed to, at the end of the play or the film or what have you, you're supposed to have this feeling that could happen to you. However, at the end of, again, going a little ahead of ourselves, when you get to the end of this Greek tragedy, I hope anyway, I'm pretty sure that's not what the film wanted you to do. It doesn't want you to actually be the Joker. This is almost like a cautionary tale, which I guess still works with that kind of Greek tragedy idea.
Of course, because I mean, look at, maybe Oedipus as an example. I mean, he killed his father and married his mother. I mean, like, if that's not cautionary, I mean, like, nobody wants to do that.
Arthur Fletch definitely had some mommy and daddy issues in this film.
Yeah.
Arthur Fletch is Fleck.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We only just saw it.
There we go. I actually think comparing it to Oedipus now, it actually makes a lot of sense now that you say it out loud.
Especially since he killed his mother.
Oh yeah. I mean, the whole film is actually how he was, obviously how the Joker was born, but really it's a film about how this character, Arthur Fetch, dies. And what's reborn literally at the end of the film, because he's dragged out of the cop car by a few of his inspirations, I guess.
His clown posse.
They are kind of insane. But he's like passed out, and then he wakes up, and he's literally no longer Arthur. He's now Joker.
And everyone sees him as Joker.
Exactly.
And believes he's the Joker, only knows him as the Joker. And he nearly single-handedly started this uprising in Gotham. And it was interesting to see the Joker kind of portrayed as a symbol of Gotham for once instead of Batman.
See, and I don't think I got the same thing out of that.
Because it was the Gotham people that were wearing the masks, and they're like, we're being oppressed and the rich don't care about us. And for that time, the Joker was the symbol for Gotham in this interpretation.
Yeah. I saw it more as the character of the Joker has always been. He thinks society is funny because society is so hypocritical. Mm-hmm. And even his quote unquote clown posse, I think he thinks that's hilarious too. At least that's what I got out of the ending line where he's laughing to himself. And he says, and the therapist at Arkham Asylum, I'm assuming, says, "What's so funny?" And he says, "Oh, you wouldn't get it." Mm-hmm. I think he's laughing at everybody at the end there because he doesn't really care about his quote unquote clown posse. He cares about the validation of what he has now finally gone through, as Arthur now dying and becoming this different person, which if you watch the film closely, and we've only watched it once, obviously, so I think there's some more stuff that we need to look at. When he's in his more demented mode, it's very subtle. And I was talking to your wife about it while the film was going. He changes dominant hands very often in this film.
Interesting. Yeah, she said you mentioned something like that.
He writes with two different hands. He'll switch carrying hands when he's holding his journal. It'll go from one side under his arm to the other side when he's using it to find inspirational jokes, to where he'll put it on the other side to actually show some of him losing it and his screws starting to slowly come loose. And I think it's the same thing as his choking laugh. It's because as that gets worse, you see that this movement happens less and less, and it becomes more of one dominant side. So I'm not sure if they were trying to do more of a split personality kind of a deal, but I started feeling that with his two different handwritings in his journal. Anyway, so I don't know.
I mean, it could be. I mean, because he's Arthur becoming the Joker, so why not? I mean, and they were kind of playing it that he had more than one kind of mental illness anyway, although never explicitly explained anything other than the laughing one. But we saw that he was on the 7 different medications.
Right. So I think that was a mild form of Tourette's. I think you'd consider that laughing.
The laughing thing. I mean, that I see where that's coming from, but honestly, like I'm not sure. I do know that it's based on a real condition But it was an interesting choice for the Joker character for sure. Kind of an origin story of the laugh, in itself, which is cool. Speaking of origin stories, as far as those go, this was the first time Thomas Wayne's character, and for those of you who don't know, is Batman's dad. I mean, if you didn't figure that out, this is the first time he showed any kind of potential flaws. Whether or not anything that was said about him was true or not, he still punched him in the face.
Yeah. Right. So I really like that aspect that they left Thomas Wayne so ambiguous. You're not really sure if he is a bad guy. He just might be a super out of touch rich dude trying to become mayor. I mean, a few of the lines kind of go back and forth. It's like, I'm trying to save them for their own good. They don't know what they do. Kind of this Jesus mentality, which I think in a lot of Batman movies and comics, they kind of make Thomas Wayne out to be almost this impeachable good guy that gets gunned down.
He's always been like the rich good guy, like he's going to help everybody and he dies.
Yeah. And that's kind of what makes Batman is that he says, well, my father tried to save society and look what happened to him. Right. So it's kind of this juxtaposed with the Joker, which is why I think they left it in, even though it really kind of didn't need it.
I would agree, because as a comic book fan, and like my wife was much more annoyed by it than I was, when Penny which was the Joker's mother, was saying that, Thomas Wayne's your father, and then which was revealed was not true, and then you're not really sure. Like, if that was true, I would have been so annoyed. I would have probably not even enjoyed the movie, but because they turned that around and they showed the adoption papers and they showed that it's not true, even though it's still arguably ambiguous. And that's the point. They didn't put it in stone. So that to me, I was able to accept that, because the Joker's crazy anyway. If he believes it, is one thing, because he's nuts. So, I mean, that's an interesting, sub motivation, type thing.
Yes. But I think what this film did a good job at showing the audience is also that, I mean, insanity is that you don't know you're insane. And Arthur never once thought of himself as crazy. He always saw himself as the victim, which honestly, everything that happens in the film,
he was, and it made you feel bad. Oh man, like those little kids, they're they stole his sign and they're beating him up, oh.
Notice that nothing happened purely from individuals. It was always in a group setting that he was actually being taken advantage of or literally beaten up.
Even on the train too with the three guys.
The train with the three guys. The comedy club. Where he first tries to where he goes and tries to make his stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
And his condition comes out and he can't stop laughing, and that's what gets recorded and put into the talk show.
Yeah. Murray.
Yeah, Murray. What's the actor's name?
Robert De Niro.
Yeah, Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro's character. The other time, even with what would seemingly be an individual, is when he gets the gun from his clown buddy. But what triggers him isn't that his clown buddy betrayed him. It's that he realized that all the other clowns thought he was more of a clown, that they didn't trust him and they didn't like him. And that's what kind of set him loose. And is that
that's why you think he killed him? Because I mean, he didn't even necessarily betray him yet, but there was kind of starting down that path, about getting caught with the cops,
He saw it as betrayal, but I think it's more of a group thing. Very few individuals besides his mother.
Mm-hmm.
Even that is arguable, because he was also abused by, we find out halfway through the film, he was abused by not just his mother, but his mother's boyfriends, which is what sets up as in a young baby Joker. the tragedy of his entire life. So it's more of this talk about society and its role on how they're treating this individual. And Joaquin Phoenix is kind of a shoehorn for mental illness itself. That line I never actually got to talk about is the funny thing about mental illness is everyone expects you to act like you don't have one.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of almost the theme of the whole film.
Yeah.
Like they went with that line and they just kind of ran with it on a script basis.
I mean, totally. I mean, look at him on the bus. You know, the kid was turning around, making a frowny face, just being a kid, and you know, he just started making faces to make the kid smile or laugh. You know,
I mean,
which
he's
is
a clown.
harmless.
That's what he does.
No big deal. But this woman, you know, like she had her maternal instincts kicked in, like, hey, you know, you creep on the bus, like don't you mess with my kid, you know, kind of thing. And then once he starts laughing, you know, she kind of, you know, not gets in his face, but, you know, tries to see if he has a problem. And that's when we first see Arthur's card, where it talks about his medical condition with the card. But like he technically wasn't doing anything wrong. She was just being protective in this city that's, you know, losing its mind.
Well, I would argue, I mean, and you're from New York, so people from the city, are they super protective? Like when people are talking, like I always viewed the city as, obviously you'd probably argue the other side, that people are kind of meaner. I would say it's more they're guarded and protected just because you're so close proximity to other people.
Let me explain the New York mentality here.
Because just 1 second though, because what this film did really good job is it really world builded Gotham of the 80s, and it really made it feel gross. It made it feel like it was a shoot. I'm pretty sure this was filmed in New York. Like I just couldn't get New York out of my head here.
You know, I swore one part was like the Lincoln Tunnel or something. I mean, because they use Chicago for Gotham a lot.
Okay.
But I'm not sure.
It felt like a dirty city. Like it really felt.
But even New York is not as dirty as they made it. Because like
in the 80s, though.
Oh yeah, I mean in the 80s, yes. Yeah, it would have been.
Because this was, I think 81 is when this film was set.
Giuliani really cleaned up a lot of New York in the 90s.
So the idea that city folk, right? I see that kind of, I can't fault the mother from having such a harsh reaction. Also, I mean, was she right? No. But was she wrong? I don't know. Some guy is kind of talking to my kid.
No. Like, yeah, it's absolutely okay. Yeah. I'm not defending. I'm not saying she did anything wrong. Just the New Yorker in me couldn't help but say, like, you know, New York is actually like a really nice city. But
see, I mean,
it's a don't f with me kind of mentality, because you do walk around. Like I do have like a certain face, you know, when I walk around, like, you know, like a subway or something. And like, I remember the first time Erica might have seen it, we were on a some kind of train, I think in San Diego, and she kept asking me what was wrong. I was like, nothing. Like you have to put on like that guarded kind of face. But
you don't want your sign being stolen, and then
you don't want your sign being. That's exactly right. You know, like, you know, you're not going to steal my phone or my iPod, you know, while I'm on the subway. You know,
right?
You know, like if you look,
you guys notice how the accent's coming out?
I know that was totally by accident, by the way. If you look, you know, a little vulnerable, like it makes you vulnerable, you know, but like they'll always hold the door for you. You know, it's just different. You know, you're in a rush. You're getting to where you're going, but you're not gonna sit there and talk like it's not the South. You're like, hey, how you doing? Like, and then we talk about your day, because like exactly like I spent like 10 days in Arkansas once, and literally that kind of Southern hospitality, everyone's really nice and friendly. Like it was a lot of fun and it was awesome, but like it's a stereotype, because like it happens. Everyone does talk to you everywhere you go. Mm-hmm. And it was great. You know, I'm not saying anything wrong. Anyway, yes.
But where he Arthur crosses the line is when he meets baby Bruce.
Yes.
And he sticks his fingers in the kid's mouth. Everything up to that was slightly creepy.
Oh, if somebody stuck their fingers in my kid's mouth, like I would punch them in the face. I think
that happened, actually. And again, kind of going backwards a little bit, but Thomas Wayne, he's an ambiguous character, which I like because we don't really find out if he's actually a bad guy or not. I mean, if somebody stuck their fingers in my kid's mouth,
I would that's have after showing up to your house.
Yeah.
And strangled your butler.
And strangled your butler and meets you in the bathroom alone.
Oh,
so
yeah.
he's having like this like gorilla, like stay away from me. I'm not
That's why you're peeing too. Like, I mean, arguably, like, you know, you're in your most vulnerable state. Like you're holding your, you know what, and you're like this creeper is creeping up on you, and gosh, like what's going to happen?
Now, what kind of leads you to whether or not he is possibly not the greatest of character, not characters, is his reaction when Fleck tells him about who he thinks he is, being his father, and he's kind of like, no, your mom's, you know, batshit crazy, and it looks like you are too. Now, he doesn't say that, but he's got that look of somebody saying this guy's nuts, right? Mm-hmm. But again, the entire film, Fleck doesn't think he's crazy. He thinks everyone else around him is crazy. Mm-hmm. And that's a really cool thing. I think that the Joker, the character himself, believes about himself in crime and all the other junk that he does in comic books and movies right now, is that he's not crazy. The world's crazy, right? It goes back to that line from the Dark Knight where if a gangbanger is going to be gunned down in the street, nobody bats an eye.
But if one little mayor, you know, is, you know, going to die, like, then everybody loses their minds,
right? That's the same idea, right? He sees the hypocrisy, but at the same time, he's a hypocrite because he doesn't realize that he's kind of crazy himself.
Yeah. I mean, it's true, but I mean, you know, that's making you think and talk like that. You know, it's kind of the overarching point. So I was like, we're all a little crazy, you know, like almost.
Okay.
Because of things like that, you know, because nobody would care if, you know, some, you know, nobody low life, you know, drug dealer died or something like,
right.
Like, oh, this guy got shot, you know, he probably deserved it. But
nobody would care if a clown was dead on the side of the street.
Yeah,
people would walk over him. Yep. Just like Arthur, I can never say his name right. Arthur was saying on Marvin, what was the talk show?
Murray.
Marvin. On Murray, right? That he was saying right before he shot the dude, you guys are hypocritical and you wouldn't say anything to me if I was just dead on the side of the street. You just keep walking.
He's like, you brought me here just to make fun of me.
Yeah.
You know, and he got it. And I like that he wasn't naive enough to think otherwise. Because at first he was really, when he first saw his clip being showed on his show, he was really excited. And like, you know, his girlfriend, even though the girlfriend actually really wasn't there, like she wasn't in the room anymore in his mind. And his mother was like in a coma or asleep or whatever. But he wanted to show somebody. He was really excited. And then he realized that like, no, they're not showing this because they think I'm funny. Like they're making fun of me and they're calling me a joker. Like, oh, this Joker, you know, and like he was so upset by it. That's why it was, because at first when they called him to be on the show, I was like, he's not really reacting. Like his stare was just blank. And like the girl on the phone was like, isn't that great news? Like she was trying to get some emotion. I'm like, oh yes. Like
this is like his hero.
I'm a
character.
nobody.
Yeah.
You know, and yes, it was his hero, like in the beginning of the movie, but you know, looking back, you kind of realize is like he was starting to plot this out. That's why he wasn't like jumping up and down like, yes, I can't wait. Thank you so much. You know, like it's like, yes, Thursday works. I'll be there.
But what's interesting is that Murray, takes him, probably the only one in the entire film, except for the record guy at the Arkham Asylum or the Arkham Hospital.
Oh yeah.
Two characters in the entire film take him serious. It's actually Murray at the end of the film. He's like, because he actually believes him. He's like, hey, did you really do this? And he starts questioning him, and he's like, and he starts to try to say, hey, this isn't funny. Like, you killed 3 people. That's not how we're supposed to do stuff. So, why are you laughing? And, what's interesting is that right then and there, I believe he actually changed his mind from killing himself, because the film pretty much from the beginning kind of makes you think this is going to end with Joker.
I thought for sure
himself,
that's
right?
what it was going to be. And I don't think it necessarily would have bothered me, because especially since DC's over here doing this whole cinematic universe, and then just like, oh, and here's a movie with Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, even though Jared Leto's running around. But this has nothing to do with anything else we're doing.
Are we done with Jared Leto off topic a little bit? No, he's still Joker too?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily defined, but I mean, with this upcoming Birds of Prey movie,
right.
we see this Margaret Robbie, and she's referring to Mr. J, which is obviously Jared
Mr.
Leto's
J.
joke. Where was I going with that?
Relating to the character?
Yeah. I don't think it would have bothered me, because especially since DC is very big into their multiple universes thing.
Yeah.
And that's apparent with the upcoming event they're doing on their TV show, The Crisis on Infinite Earths. If this was an alternate universe Joker, like, I would totally be okay with that. And it would be really cool if there was room for this in like a Flashpoint movie, like if he was just legitimately a Joker from an alternate universe, or just one of the Jokers, because we saw recently in DC Comics, with whatever the event this was, like, I mean, DC fans are going to kill me, but like, I don't know. But when Batman sat on that throne and he asked the question, who was the Joker? It was 3 people.
Yeah.
So why not Joaquin Phoenix, Jared Leto, and someone else? Why can't this be one of the Jokers? I mean, it could be, but here's the thing. And my wife brought this to my attention, and it's a really good point. And to me, it's one of the biggest problems with the Gotham show. How old is Joker? And Bruce Wayne's like 10 still. So what? Joker has like 35 years at least on Bruce Wayne. So when he finally becomes Batman, like, what, Joker's in his 50s, 60s?
See, I think that's what you're getting. I think a lot of people read too much into that idea, the different universes and thing too. The way I saw it is kind of a hearkening back again to the Dark Knight, where the Joker in the Dark Knight kept changing his origin stories in that film. I feel like this could just be one of the stories that Joker makes up about his origins,
and that's fine.
And I feel like that kind of opens the door. I mean, I don't want to see this. Don't get me wrong, because I don't think it's necessary by any means. Mm-hmm. I see this opening the door if it's successful. I believe this will probably be successful.
It's already successful. It's the biggest October opening for an R-rated movie. Numbers. It's beat Deadpool for an opening weekend of an R-rated movie.
No kidding.
Yep. Huh. It's doing really good at the box office.
Even with all the controversy with the opening weekend?
Last time I checked, and we're recording this on Monday, but I thought the last numbers was about 13.9 million, if I want to say. It's last time I checked, it was at least 13 million. Huh. But it's having a really good R-rated opening. And it beat Venom, which was the last record holder for an R-rated October opening.
Well, that was just like a turd rolling in the wind.
I never saw it. But I'm aware that is a line in the movie. Which is why I also didn't see it.
But going back to what I was saying, though, is that as a story for the Joker, I believe this opens a door for DC to make other basically Joker origin stories. I think they're going to space it out a couple more years, but I see them being able to now create another origin story and another origin story because people love the Joker. And what does Hollywood do until it becomes unbearable?
Just make it
over and over and over again.
Okay, so then here's the thing. The Joker, the whole thing with the Joker is he has that multiple choice origin. And that's great and that's fine. And like that's what makes the Joker fun and exciting.
What makes the Joker.
Exactly.
That's actually the character is because, like I said, the end of the film, you're not even sure if anything in that film actually happened.
Absolutely. And like that's probably a redeeming factor and what's actually allowed me, I guess, to enjoy the film. Because really, as a comic book movie, like it really didn't draw too much from any of his origins that were depicted. I mean, only like really the failed comedian kind of thing. And even then, like it was a really
so grasping.
Yeah, that is grasping. And I talked about this with Ken on, I don't know if it was the last episode or the episode before, but we talked about when characters do or do not need movies. And I said, like, Joaquin Phoenix is going to do a good job. And even if this is a good movie, this is not going to be a good comic book movie. And now that I've seen it, I still feel that same way.
Well,
but do you think we needed a Joker movie for the DC universe?
I mean,
did Joker need his own movie?
You know how I feel.
It.
I hate Jared Leto's Joker.
That's not what I'm asking you. Does Joker need an origin film?
Joker, the character, does not need an origin film. However, what comic book movies need right now is something different. And guess what this movie was? Very different from comic book movies. Because I would argue it's less of a comic book movie and more of just an adaptation.
It's not even an adaptation. It's they took the Joker and then they made stuff up.
Yeah, I mean,
that's literally all it is. The only thing were from the comics was the fact that he was a failed comedian and killing the Waynes at the end.
I mean,
that was it.
That's the overt. There's a few Easter eggs in there that hearken and pay homage to past Jokers. There's a few really, really cool things that they do that are very subtle. And that's why I really like this film on another reason is the subtlety of their Easter eggs. Like the whole little flower right after he gets beaten up with the sign exploding. That was an Easter egg for the old Joker from
the Jack Nicholson Joker, you mean?
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that was really cool.
You know what I liked that I caught it, and my wife didn't catch this. I'm wondering if you caught it when he was practicing for Murray's show, and he set up the living room, and he went onto the couch, and there was a little armchair. He went so far in the details, like he walked through the shower curtain, just like they walked through the curtains, but on the nightstand in between the couch and the armchair where Murray would have been sitting, if you will, he took a mug and he scribbled the Murray Show in marker on it.
I didn't even notice that.
Like I caught that. I was like, wow. Like he is so like trying to recreate this that he wrote the Murray Show like on this mug, you know?
Well, you could probably assume that he's actually realistically visualizing it in his head.
Yeah.
And we, the audience, are just watching him visualize it in his head, because right in the beginning of the film we see him imagine an entire interaction on the Murray Show. And that's really, besides seeing his love interest, or his, I wouldn't even call it a love interest, it's more of a
stalker interest.
His muse, I guess.
Stalker interest.
Yeah.
Sorry guys, my chair is extra squeaky today.
Really see inside of his head. You see him interpreting things outwardly.
Okay.
So and we're kind of left, and that's what kind of makes him such a character that you're trying to root for, but at the same time, you know where he's gonna end up. You know this is the Joker, and he's gonna turn into a homicidal maniac. I mean, the first time he kills somebody is out of self-defense. It's and
even then I jumped.
Yeah. I didn't think he was gonna.
And like that, all the respect to the filmmakers, like what a fantastic job they did in the first two, at least actually
all the shots, every time the gun went off,
I literally jumped. The way I don't know, like the way they filmed it, the way it was like quiet, just the right kind of way. And you're not really, I don't know. Like
It was
I
jump scares
literally
done appropriately.
Yeah, it wasn't
proper
like
setup.
yeah.
Because like when he's just fooling with the gun when he first gets it,
Yep.
I was like, oh, he's gonna accidentally shoot it, and then they didn't do it when I thought they were gonna do it, and then as soon as they didn't do it when I thought they were gonna do it, it happened. I'm like, oh crap,
Exactly. And like I saw the bullets out of it, and I was like, no, like
right?
you know,
oh
like
yeah.
like
Because he didn't know it was loaded.
Like it can't be loaded, right? Like he didn't shoot it yet. Yes, you're absolutely right. And then the self-defense thing, like I don't even think you saw him the first time you even pull out the gun. The guy just gets shot.
Yeah, his head
in
just
the
explodes.
head, and you're just like, what? Like this is it? Like he's just jumping right into
Yeah.
it now, you know?
But it was
And
out
then
of self-defense.
And when he shoots Murray, like exactly what we said before, like I thought he was going to shoot himself.
Yeah,
And like the whole
that's how he practiced.
The whole entire movie, besides the fact that he actually did put the gun to his head and he practiced shooting himself in the head when he was practicing the Murray thing, like he kept gesturing, you know, the
You're
shooting
right.
himself
the
thing.
entire film.
The entire movie. Like, and that's why, like we said, like I thought for sure it was going to end with him shooting himself, but then he shoots Robert De Niro on live TV.
Well, here's the thing. When he shoots Robert De Niro, Arthur dies. It's not Robert De Niro dying. It's Arthur dying. That's when he's finally the Joker. He can't take it back anymore. That's the birth of the new persona.
But man, like it's crazy because, you know, you're almost like he deserved it, you know, like the way he was making fun of him. Like it was like he was verbally kicking him, just like we saw him with the sign guys and the guys on the train. Like he would not stop making fun of him and not making fun of his jokes. And that was it.
Yeah, but
you know, like I'm not saying it was right, but like you don't think like, wow, that's really messed up.
And we were talking about this before we got on the air here, but that's what's really interesting about this film is not only do you feel for Arthur, but you kind of feel bad because you can kind of put yourself in the shoes of not just Arthur, but the shoes of the people who are, you know, mistreating him. Mm-hmm. Because again, if I was Thomas Wayne, someone stuck their fingers in my kid's mouth, that dude's getting decked, and he would get a life threatened with his life too. Mm-hmm. I also, by the way, kind of off topic, I like that Thomas Wayne actually threatened him personally. He didn't say, I can have you killed, or do you know who I am? That's a very that's like something that Bruce gets. Bruce takes care of his own business. He doesn't send out other people to do it.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't even think about that like that.
So because, I mean, Thomas Wayne being the richest guy in Gotham could have just said, you know who I am, I can have you killed. He doesn't say that. He says, come again and I'm going to kill you. Well,
I mean, we all know in Flashpoint, you know, who was Batman in that alternate reality. It was Thomas Wayne who becomes Batman when Bruce is gunned down in the alleyway, and Martha Wayne becomes the Joker because that's how she deals with Bruce's death, and Thomas Wayne deals with Bruce's death by becoming Batman.
Just
so he
one
does
bad day, right?
Yes, he has that Batman potential, you know, as is evident in that, you know. So yes, I mean that's 100% correct to the character. But I would argue.
Yeah, but going back is you feel bad for Arthur, but you also feel for all the other characters that are abusing him. Like in some way, you could see yourself possibly either not doing the same thing or at least being a bystander and seeing it happen. Like the guys on the bus, even the lady that he was kind of standing up for, not really standing up for, who's potentially about to get raped, I guess is what they were trying to suggest by the three Wayne Enterprise workers. That she gave him kind of a look of disgust when he started laughing from his condition. And then you knew exactly what was going to happen is those three guys were going to get up and they were going to beat the crap out of him. But you're like, can you really blame them? I mean, yes and no.
I mean, yes.
It's the same thing with the woman on the bus. It's kind of a natural reaction kind of a thing. Not that you can't blame them. Let me take that back. It's that idea of a natural reaction and how society
the woman on the bus is the best example.
Yeah.
You know, and the Thomas Wayne, like those are the best examples. Like they see the filmmakers did a great job that like, yes, you know, if you're in that situation, like it is hard, but at the same time, you know, like they they deserved it. You know, like it works on both levels, and to an extent.
I think that's kind of one of the major themes of the film I was trying to get to is also like where we are socially, politically today is so divided that this is what happens when you guys can't see commonalities with each other, is that you only see the extremes of both sides, and then you can't come to the humanity of each other. And I think this film that's one of the things it's trying to get at, is that when you're looking at each other's extremes, when you're looking at just the illness, or you're looking at just the violence being attributed to the person, there's not really room for any humanity to be shared in between both of them. It's either the victim or the predator, essentially. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. And that's one of my favorite things about the movie, is that like we had this kind of social commentary that was relatable, but I didn't feel like I was being preached at. And like, I feel like especially so many movies that try to do all these things, like I just feel like you're preaching at me, but like they did a really good job. And I believed it. I was like, yes, like I, just like what the Joker said at the end that we brought up, like if, it was just me, lying there dead in the streets, like you wouldn't like even look twice, right? At me, like you relate to that. And that was actually probably one of the scariest things, was how much it seemed like he was just right at the end, and how relatable that was. Like, no, like you would not care about me. Like, you're telling me, like, oh, you should go get help from social services. Like, well, they shut that down.
Yeah.
Like everything's about money. Like you don't actually care about people or the people being affected. Like it's all about profits. The medical industry is just about profit. It's not actually about healing people or an actual cure. It's treating the symptoms, and I'm getting a little too far now.
Well, no, I like what you just said, treating the symptoms, because that's essentially what he accuses the therapist of doing in the beginning of the film, is that she's not listening to him. She's just counting down the clock until she can give him some drugs.
Yep.
And say, all right, nice seeing you. Have a nice day.
And like honestly, like, and this is probably just me being stupid, when he was walking and there was the red footprints, I was like, what are those footprints? Is he imagining them? Like I couldn't.
We don't know.
Well, but I now know that he killed her. And
did he
went to get out. Yes, sure. Like everything is up in the air, but like that was the point, and I didn't get it. At
Tyler
first.
Durden moment.
Yes, no, it totally was. But overall, it was a good movie.
I give it. I think it's one of the, if not the best movie I've seen this year so far, because my thoughts about media right now, and it's just there's so much political garbage that's being thrown into everything right now, and this had a message to say, but like you said, it's not overly preachy about anything. It's more talking about how we treat each other, and I like that it kind of left it ambiguously unpolitical at the same time.
And
it had its moments, and I know some people could claim that it's definitely an anti-capitalist movie, but I think they would be looking at the wrong side of it.
Yeah, I would argue. I would say that's not even like the point.
Exactly. That's not even the main reason that the whole riot started not because people were pissed off about the rich people. It started off because people were just as insane as the Joker was. They just used it as an excuse for violence, right?
Yeah.
And it shows there's even something noble like trying to make society more fair can turn very quickly into its own violent tendencies as well. Is that it's just an excuse for other insane people to use violence for their own insanity, as opposed to an actual message, right? It harkens back to, again, I think the way that they kind of tied it to the Dark Knight, that's why I keep saying it's a comic book movie still, because it felt like the most extreme parts of like the beginning of the French Revolution, right? So, not the Dark Knight, but the Dark Knight Rises, right? That movie was very much like the Reign of Terror kind of aspect of the French Revolution, But the Joker was like the beginning parts of it, is like this first upheaval of the natural order and of the bourgeoisie and the monarchy and all that good junk. As Thomas Wayne would, I don't know, be considered the King Louis the 16th, right?
Sure.
And then after he's murdered, then violence just explodes everywhere, and then it's unstoppable at this point. And I like that they kind of did almost like the before, like what would happen to what's happening to Gotham just as this violence is starting to break out. And I think it harkens back to some of the other things that have happened in U.S. history. You can also do like the late 80s riots, the Rodney King riots.
Yeah, sure. I mean, especially the riots. Yeah, I mean, it was riots in the streets. You know.
Tell me, where were you? Sublime. Sorry.
I wasn't even born.
1992.
Oh, it was 92? I thought it was...
Or 94.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, no, I wasn't.
We were both way too young to remember that.
No, I was in New York.
I was in Phoenix.
You were a little closer.
A little closer to LA, I guess. Anyway, the idea, the way that violence is used in this film, by the way, a lot of people were freaking out because, especially some of the early reviewers from like the film festivals, they were talking about how violent this movie is. And this movie was violent, but it wasn't by any means the most violent movie I've ever seen in my life.
It wasn't violent. I mean, it was disturbing.
It was one of the most disturbing and dark films I've ever seen.
It wasn't that. I mean, people got shot like in the head and stuff, but to me, Logan was much more violent.
Oh yeah, totally.
I mean, there was claws going through people's heads. You know,
I mean, many war movies with other messages were much more violent. Like
the reason why this was such a big deal was the disturbing nature, you know, the exploration into mental illness. You know, I mean, he killed his mother. You know, like there's lots of other things, but like shit. I mean, like there was a share of violence, but I mean,
it wasn't crazy amount though. Like when I was walking into it, I thought like, I don't know, Joker was gonna like poke people's eyeballs out with his fingers and
honestly,
do some crazy shit and like some really sadistic stuff.
I thought it was going to be worse on more levels too, like even like some demented like sexual stuff too. But like, I think the media definitely overhyped it. That I was like, oh, okay.
And the sexual thing too, just kind of a side thing, was when you start to see Joker lose his screws. When he starts to really like killing, it's the only time his girlfriend kind of pops around is after he murders somebody.
Huh.
I mean, the first time he has the sex scene, and not a sex scene, there's no nudity in this film, except for maybe a little whitey-tidy accentuation of the dong.
There was, I would argue there might be a little nudity because when he flips his book
porn in the notebook.
Yeah, there's like naked women in his journal.
What really bothered me?
What's that?
Nobody in the film said anything about that. It's almost like they either couldn't see it, they didn't see it, or they ignored the obvious pornography in his notebook.
Who knows what it was, because like the way it was shot too, like you clearly saw the woman on there. And like then they cut to the girlfriend. I was like, she's gonna freak out, and then she was just laughing. But like now we know she really wasn't there.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was weird because it was apparent.
Then you see it in the club as he's trying to find a joke to tell.
That's
in the club.
What I mean. Like
and no one says anything.
One of the shots, like it's as he opens the notebook and it kind of like does that fold thing, and like the paper's now on the back. Like it's clearly in the shot, and like the way it was shot too. I thought it was going to play into the scene somehow, and then it didn't.
What's interesting too is because they kept flipping through the same thing. I'm pretty sure every time he went to go find a joke, he flipped to the exact same page. He only ever flipped to that one page and stopped on it to find a joke. So were any of his jokes actually written on that page, or is that something that he has like almost like a Tourette's crutch or something that he had?
I don't know. I don't
OCD.
know if his journal is all over the place, because he did say he was writing jokes in there, but as he was reading in Murray, we saw that not everything was necessarily a joke, but we did see him taking notes at the comedy club. Like, sex is funny. This is do this, do that.
Sexy things are always funny. Or
Yes.
something like that.
Yeah. But one of my favorite things about not only the journal, but every time he had to read something, like the note his mother wrote to Thomas Wayne, the medical files, was the way they conveyed that information. Because, like sometimes when in a movie or a TV show, when they show the letter and there's the shot of it and they try to give you like time to read it, but they didn't
give you
quite
time
do that
to read anything.
The way they had it focused was like you just picked up enough words here and there. And to me, it was like the way he was reading it. Because and we're all probably partially guilty of this, especially in this age of technology and short attention spans. Like we click on an article and like, do we read the whole thing? No. Like we read the first few sentences and then we skip. And like it was like that, and like, I think they did an incredible job with that.
Maybe because he was only reading what he wanted to read.
Maybe that's part of it. Maybe it was just he was literally just kind of skipping through it, but like it wasn't just here's the piece of paper you're reading, read it.
Yeah.
It was skipping around to this part, this word, this sentence.
And that's kind of what he did with his journal too.
Yeah. And that's the exact way they were showing his journal too. Like that, the way they did all of those reading things was very interesting, and they were similar.
One of the lines that kept popping up to me, and I don't know if it's an Easter egg. It's something. I couldn't figure out why this line kept sticking in my head because they said it, I think, 2 or 3 times in the film.
Okay.
I hope my death makes more sense than my life.
Yeah.
And sense is CENT.
Yes, spelled dollars.
So I'm trying to figure out something has to do with that line. I can't quite put my finger on it.
It was interesting. And that was another reason why I thought he was going to shoot himself at the end. Like, I hope my death makes more sense than my life. I guess what my takeaway would be was, the Joker now is going to have this life of crime and he's going to make a lot of money. And now that he's dead, it's making more sense than his life because he was poor up until that point.
That's true. But even
maybe I'm reaching, but I mean, like, he didn't, besides the metaphorical death.
Even in the film, him and his mother were super poor. She was worried about money, but he never really cared about money. Even when he lost his job, he wasn't thinking, where am I going to get my next job? How am I going to pay rent? That never came across to him. He just lost his job. He's like, well, crap. Now I'm no longer a clown. Right? So,
yeah, I mean, he did want to take care of his mother, though.
Yeah, but he wasn't. Yes and no. He wanted to take care of his mother up to the point of where he could still do what he wants to do. It's almost like because if he wanted to take care of his mother, being a clown is the best thing he can do. He can't, I don't know, Baby Joker can't go out and become like a McDonald's employee or Gotham Subway or something.
I mean, it's supposed to be rough out there, right?
Right.
That was the point,
If it's rough, I mean, being a clown is kind of probably not the best, the easiest job to get at the same time.
Yeah.
There's only so much demand for clowns, especially ones that like drop guns in the middle of hospitals. Mm-hmm. I thought the gun was going to go off when he was trying to fumble it.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought he was going to shoot a kid. That's why I thought he was going to start getting really demented. And then, nah, it was a really good subversion each time of what I thought was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And again, that's why when the gunshots did go off, I think it also helped that we watched it in IMAX. I didn't realize how loud IMAXs were.
And you made a comment that the screen didn't seem that big. I could be wrong, but I think IMAX can be called IMAX if the sound is at least in IMAX.
Oh, okay. So I was looking at him like the screen doesn't seem that much bigger. I mean, when they did the first line, the title screen of Joker, I was like, whoa. And I kind of went back, but then the rest of the film was fine.
It took up like the full screen, didn't it? But yeah. I mean, here's the thing though, as well. I don't know if you go to Estrella Falls in Goodyear very often, but the Cine one there is the biggest screen in Arizona. And I don't know about you, but like I'm used to that one and it's bigger.
I honestly don't care about screen size. It's not the size that counts. It's the atmosphere.
Oh, okay.
Because I love going to the movies, and I just don't have a lot of people that want to go with me.
Oh, I'll go with you.
And there hasn't been very many movies out that I've wanted to see in theaters.
Yeah, but this is like the second time that there was a girl next to me and she was like texting, and I wanted to smack the phone out of her hand. And like people always kick the back of my seat. Like that's why I like going to Estrella Falls, because like you have those lazy boys and you can lay back and nobody can kick your seat.
You know how you could have fixed that really easy?
That's what smacked the phone out of her hand.
No, you just start laughing at not funny parts of the movie. I actually had a.
And by the way, if you're listening to this and you're the kind of person who texts in the middle of a movie theater, no, you need to stop. Like, I don't even care.
I thought we don't get political on this podcast.
No, I'm getting political right now. Like if you text next to people in the middle of a movie, like full on texting, checking Facebook and Instagram and dinking around on your phone, you're a bad person. I'm sorry.
Well,
sorry.
I mean, that could be maybe another talk for another day. I don't want to get too off topic, but one of the reasons why movie culture is dying, I think, is people are losing movie etiquette. It's kind of like what they say about like airplane culture.
It's 100%, because like that's literally half of the reason why I don't like going to see anything but Marvel movies in theaters. I used to go to the movies every weekend.
Yeah.
Literally every weekend.
I was the same way growing up.
And now like people are kicking, and people kicking the back of my seats. They're texting, they're talking, they're making stupid comments. Like I can't handle it. You know? Like I'm literally going to get into a fight. Like it's not worth it.
Just start laughing randomly. That fixes all problems, apparently. That's what I got out of the movie.
Yeah, that's right. That was the real...
I mean, you have to get the shit beat out of you like 3 or 4 times before you can fix things, but...
That was the real moral of the story there. So any last feelings before we wrap this up? Because we are just about out of time.
I mean, we kind of said it before, and then we got off on a tangent again. I mean, obviously, both of us love this film. I don't know about you, but... out of a score of 10, I'd probably give it a good solid 8. Not the best film I've ever seen. It definitely has some flaws, but overall, I very much enjoyed the film, even though I knew exactly how it was going to end. And I think a lot of films today, they try to keep you surprised, and it actually ruins a lot of the fun of the film itself. I don't have to be surprised. I knew how the Lord of the Rings was going to end, right? I knew how the Hobbit was going to end.
Yeah.
I mean, Hobbit's probably not the best example.
No, but the Lord of the Rings is a fantastic example.
Yeah.
And as a huge Lord of the Rings fan, like, yes, I know The Return of the King technically has like 10 different endings. Like, that's fine. But I was about to throw my freaking popcorn at the screen when I thought Frodo fell off the cliff. If they killed Frodo at the end of Lord of the Rings, like I would have been livid. And literally that's the only reason why they had him kind of jerk off the cliff and hang off for a second, was to keep everyone like, whoa, my gosh, did Frodo just die?
But you knew it wasn't going to happen.
No, I didn't, because he fell off with Gollum. I freaked out for a second, and I get that they were just trying to keep it interesting, but you didn't need to do it. I would have been fine just doing the ending the right way, because you skipped the scouring of the Shire anyway, and you're going to get me into a whole Lord of the Rings thing right here if you don't cut me off.
Talking crap about New York and Lord of the Rings, 2 things that'll start a new podcast. No, my point is, modern media right now, movies, they're trying so hard to fight the film theory stuff, and it's like, stop trying to fight it. If people want to ruin the movie for themselves, let them. But don't let it get in the way of good storytelling. Just tell the story and don't worry about people guessing the end.
Yep.
We all knew how it was going to end.
I just, especially
for the most part.
Yes, I did think he was going to kill himself, but yeah, I mean, he was going to become the Joker, right?
Obviously, right?
I mean, and it was cool to see Thomas and Martha Wayne leaving the Zorro movie, because yes, we all know what happens when Thomas, Martha, and Bruce leave the Zorro movie.
See, again, I thought he was going to shoot the Waynes after the play that they were seeing when he first gets punched in the face by Thomas.
Oh, really?
And I was like, I turned to Erica. I was like, you know what's going to happen next. And then it didn't happen. I'm like, oh. And then I saw them walking out of the film. Like, oh, okay, here it is.
That's the big thing. It was the Zorro.
Yeah, the Gayblade.
Well, was it the Gayblade? I thought it was a different one. No. I could be wrong. But yes, I mean, but you brought up an interesting point. It was like coming out of the movie theater might have just been sufficient. Like, did we need to?
Yeah.
Because how many times? Like, it's like how many times we're gonna kill the Waynes? How many times we're gonna kill Uncle Ben? You know, how many times is Peter Parker gonna get bitten by the spider? You know,
I think, and I was telling you right after the film, I think that was more of a production. Like, hey, you guys have to, tie in Batman just a little bit more, just because this is a DC film, even though they didn't play the DC opening credits.
That's right, they didn't. There was like an old school Warner Brothers logo.
And I didn't even notice that. That was something you noticed.
It was like red with a weird looking WB.
But yeah, I think they could have left a lot more of the Batman stuff out, to be honest. But then again, it wouldn't be a comic book film. So Todd Phillips, the director, kind of tread this really careful tightrope of not being too comic booky.
It wasn't.
But at the same time, still trying to tie it in.
And that was the thing. Like, they literally were making stuff up the whole time. And like for what it was, like, I did enjoy it, and I did really enjoy it. Joaquin Phoenix did a great job. Like, I'm right there with like an 8 out of 10 for you. But like, as a comic book movie, like, it was awful. It was garbage. And if you're a fan of the Joker from the comics, like, you might not really enjoy this too much. And like, that's really annoying. Like, I'm more of a Marvel guy. If they did this to a Marvel character, I'd be losing my mind right now.
I'm trying to think of any examples.
Gosh, I mean, any bad guy. I mean, like, if they made a Green Goblin movie.
Yeah, but I think that's where DC has a little bit of a leg up over Marvel. Is DC's, I mean, more dark just in general. Their storylines. I mean, I'm going to get shot here because I'm not admittedly the biggest comic book fan. Mm-hmm. I know enough to carry my own conversation for anyone listening, but I know that DC tends to have more of this dark and more cynical view of society than Marvel comics. Marvel's more of like a individual look at, 90s and early 2000s Marvel. I know it's starting to get more.
I mean, sometimes I know what you're saying, like, especially
besides
in the movies,
like X-Men and stuff. Like, that's
just,
obviously.
It's just funny that they were worried about being too dark, with Justice League and Batman and what they did with Superman, and then they go ahead and put this out. It's pretty funny, especially following movies like Shazam and Aquaman, which were the opposite.
They're still trying to chase the Christopher Nolan Batman series. Like, they're trying to chase that golden goose. The only thing that Batman's supposed to be super ass dark. Like, that's the character.
No. Oh, Batman. I'm sorry. Yeah. I thought you said Superman. I'm sorry.
Because just like Joker, they're two sides of the same coin, right? Mm-hmm. Not to bring Two-Face into this, but two sides of the same coin. They're both tragic stories that went two different paths. One uses tragedy for the force of good and wears a mask. The other one paints his face and uses tragedy for the force of bad. Mm-hmm. And they actually made that commentary in the Joker. They used a line talking about when he first murdered the three dudes.
Yeah, the wearing the mask.
Wearing the mask thing. And I was like, this is so meta. Like, they're like trying to foreshadow Batman when Batman has nothing to really do with this film. Yeah. It was I kind of like that. It almost, it was pretty cool. Yeah. Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves again.
My closing thought really is, even though it was good, I mean, I'm sorry, like, I was right. Like, you still didn't need this movie, and nothing that happened in this movie makes me believe otherwise, even though I enjoyed it,
So could you separate the comic book fan from yourself and just enjoy the film, though?
But I did.
Yeah.
I'm just what I'm saying.
So even though comic book, DC comic book world did not need this film, do you think Hollywood needed this film?
I think you could have done this movie, and he couldn't have, if he didn't become the Joker, he could have just, whatever. Like, he just been a clown that killed himself at the end.
Do you think it would have flown if it was just some random clown instead of the Joker?
No,
or do
it
you
wouldn't.
think people would have said the exact opposite?
It wouldn't have had like the biggest R-rated movie opening ever. No, like that's the whole reason why all the people flocked to this was because it was called the Joker.
Well, how are you in Hollywood today? How are you supposed to make a good
you're right, but
movie?
Just saying,
how are you supposed to make money on a movie if it's not a superhero movie right now?
Trust me, like this is the biggest problem was if I was more of a DC fan, like I would have boycotted this. I would not have supported this nonsense, but I didn't care. So I went to go see it and I wanted to talk about it on Nightcap Chat, the pop culture comics and gaming podcast.
I'm not that big of a fan of comic book movies anymore. Cause I have what the media calls the superhero, I don't know. I'm tired of comic book movies, and I thought this was refreshing. Yes, it was still quote unquote comic book.
I think you could have done, okay. And I don't know if you heard the episode, but we talked about when they first announced the Joker movie and saw the trailer. What I thought would have been really interesting, and it really would have made this more okay for comic book fans, is if they, during all of his little crisis, if he experienced different Joker origin stories, whether he was the failed comedian or not, got involved in some kind of gang, and just whether it was him or not, just experienced his origin story in different ways and still kind of had this ambiguous what happened, what didn't, what did he experience, what did he not, kind of Fight Club thing.
It is ambiguous. You don't know what happened at the end.
Yes, and
this could just be one story. Yeah, what if next year Joaquin Phoenix comes out with another Joker?
And that was one of the best things about it, but it's still
origin story.
It still didn't need it.
Would it fix itself if Joaquin Phoenix in 2 years
you still
was
don't
the
need
Joker
it.
again in a completely different origin story? Where he was a gang member.
Now that's talking about beating a dead horse, like that's exactly
welcome to Hollywood.
But we appreciate you taking all your time to listen to us tonight. We appreciate all the liking, the sharing, subscribing, all of you who join us every week. Don't forget to follow us at Nightcap Chat on Facebook and Twitter, and at Nightcap_chat on Instagram. Nightcap Chat is available on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever podcasts are available. Some of that I'm not even sure, and I say that every week because iTunes just distributes to all kinds of crazy things, and I didn't even tell it to. But thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you all next week.
Good night.